Martin Cabinet Studio. It's the Need to Know Morning Show on AM 1100. The Flag.
Okay, over the last 5 minutes, I've made a decision that Derrick, LaPointe, and I need to start a hockey podcast. We had a ton of fun talking about hockey over the last 5 minutes or so, but we will switch gears here because what we do on Tuesdays at 8:05 is a CEO Spotlight. It's brought to you by Vaaler Insurance. When it comes to protecting your business, nobody beats a Vaaler, and it doesn't cost a penny to ask some questions to set up a visit online. To set up a visit, go online to Vaaler.com. That's VAALER.com. Kevin is trying to say something to me. My friend, what would you like to say?
I would just think Nancy just stepped to the podium, Pelosi just stepped to the podium to make this announcement here.
That I thank the chairs of the committees, the 6 committees who have been working to help us honor our oath of office. I also want to thank the staff of those committees and the committee members for all of their work over this period of time to help us protect and defend. I want to thank the chairman of the Judiciary Committee.
Protect and defend what? I just thought that was worthy of just a quick listen to. They're getting ready to announce the articles of impeachment.
Okay.
And this is look at that lineup behind her. Yeah.
Aren't they a bunch of happy campers?
There's a
Maxine.
Look at
Max.
Nadler.
Look at Max. She's got no smile on her face at all.
Nadler looks like the donkey from Winnie the Pooh, doesn't he? Eeyore.
Yeah.
We'll loop you in here as the situation warrants on the Capitol Hill announcement here today. We've been talking about all morning. There will be articles of impeachment officially filed, and it will come down to a vote. It looks like there will be enough votes in the Democrat-controlled House to get that done and send it over to the Senate, where it looks like there will not be enough votes to actually remove the president from office, but it's going to be interesting to watch as we go through the process. 8:08, and as I mentioned, Derrick LaPointe is here. Derrick is the president and CEO of Downtown Moorhead, Inc. He's been kind enough to join us here on the Vaaler Insurance CEO Spotlight. Hey, Derrick, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, it's an interesting time in our country, obviously. And I think for my role, and I think Governor Walz actually said it really best when he came up and visited us as well, is it's certainty in business. And our turmoil that we have in our country, whether it's nationally or at state level or city levels, when people are making large financial decisions, especially from a business standpoint, they want that certainty of what that future is. So it's a very interesting time in our country, and we hope we can get some unity, or at least kind of share some things that we can control to make that certainty a reality.
Well said. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about Downtown Moorhead, Inc. and what is it? And it's a fairly recent entity, and you kind of came aboard to pilot the ship. Tell us what it is and what you do.
Yeah, so Downtown Moorhead, Inc. is a fairly new nonprofit. We're about a year and a half old. I was the company's first hire, so the first president CEO. So the first few months was really just trying to figure out, do we have the right paperwork filed? What's our role? What's our responsibility? We asked a lot of questions to the business and development community of what their perception was of Moorhead, what their experience has been in Moorhead. It was interesting. Our group was really founded on a lot of influential people in the community of Moorhead, and quite frankly, in the Fargo-Moorhead area. So we have the owner of Shield, Steve D. Shield, is on my board, leadership at American Crystal, Samford, RDO, the university leadership of MSU, M-State, and Concordia. So some really powerful individuals that said it's time to see some change in downtown Moorhead and Moorhead in general. About 6 months into the job, after having a lot of conversations with all different types of different folks, the city approached myself and the organization to see if we'd be willing to enter a contract to do economic development work for the entire city of Moorhead. It took a lot of conversation, just making sure that we weren't losing our focus of downtown. We were reassured by the city that they share that same focus, that they want to see their urban environment change and prosper. And we entered that. So the last year and a half has been a whirlwind of change. We've guided policy redevelopment, policy revisions in a lot of different fronts, whether it's economic incentives to establishing a housing goal in downtown, to working through border city challenges, which is a real thing, but We're making a lot of progress with the state of Minnesota on the way we are viewed in this community. And I'm excited for our future. As we were talking about before we got on air, I felt like for the first 8 months I was really banging my head against the wall, right? Like what are we getting done? But I was writing my kind of annual report last night. We had 15 new businesses open up in downtown last year alone. We have about 8 to 10 projects that happened, a bunch that are planned for next year. To me, there was such a strong perception in Moorhead, and quite frankly in our region, that it was more difficult to do business in Minnesota or Moorhead, and it was more expensive. And we just fronted those conversations, those difficult conversations head on. We didn't shy away from them. We wanted to hear and learn from it, and then go back to try to figure it out. And I can honestly say now, with, again, a lot of hard conversations with the state and having representatives from the legislation work with us, we have sustained border cities appropriations, which means our property tax for commercial industrial projects are the exact same as North Dakota's. That's certainty in business, right? Yeah. We also have a sustained amount of dollars coming in on a yearly basis that we can use to kind of offset those border city disparities. So we're going head on, and I think, quite frankly, we can be a bigger player within our own region, and a bigger player in the state of Minnesota if that happens as well. So it's been great. It's been a great year, challenging year and a half, but progress is upon us, and we need to keep pushing. It's never the finish flag's up or the completion thing is done. It's what's the next thing? How do we start working for our businesses? Because that's what it's all about. We want people to be successful.
I was kind of having some fun off the top of our segments, saying we could talk hockey all day too long. Derrick played at UND, and so obviously very proud of what your team is doing this year, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I have a passion, obviously, for hockey. I wish I was still playing. I had an injury that took me out, and I had a good fortune to play a couple years pro. And I always kind of reflect on those experiences that I had, whether it was at UND or in the professional ranks of you learn time management very quickly.
Yeah.
But that competitive fire never really dies either. So whether it's in business or whether it was playing sport, I want to see people succeed. I want to succeed myself. So it's fun to see UND kind of getting back on top. Obviously, we were talking about the parodies of college hockey and the way things change, especially with talent coming in and consistent talent. And you have teams that are really successful like UND that lose people early, and which is a good thing, I think, for the program too. But certainly that takes time to rebuild. And but yeah, I always will bleed green and love my UND hockey up there.
What did you learn from Brad Berry, who's the coach up there now, and he was with the staff up there for a little while when you were there too? But when you learn from a good coach, it can help you as a future executive figure out how you want to lead an organization too, and that's what you're doing now. What kind of lessons did you learn as a hockey player that helped you in the role you have now? Yeah,
I would say UND certainly shaped the way I am right now. What I would say the biggest thing I took away is every day we went to the rink, whether it was the rink or the classroom, you represented UND hockey. We were professional. You were respectful to your peers. It was never a power that you were above somebody or better than anybody. It was hard work, an honest way of doing things, and that kind of attitude and really character stayed with me throughout. I had, again, the good fortune to end up talking to the media quite a bit. The sports information directors always kind of tapped on me in the hard situations, which sometimes wasn't always great. But I remember having really difficult conversations after a team lost, or after we lost my senior year in the semifinals to Michigan at the Frozen Four in St. Paul, and having to kind of collect thoughts and go through it. And again, like all those experiences, you learn from. I mean, it's just I think back of just the experiences I was able to have to really take with me for the rest of my life. And Dave Hackstall, who is my coach at the current time, Brad Berry, who recruited me, just excellent human beings, first class professionals in themselves. They knew how to communicate. They knew how to set the example, set the tone for their staff as well as their players. And I think that's what I try to do too. Is I try to set that example of we're going to work. We're not going to shy away from things, but we're going to figure out what the problems are. We're going to tackle it. We're going to get it done.
You talked about we can be a leading voice in our region. Tell me what that looks like and how do you get there? So what is your vision for what downtown Moorhead and Moorhead economic development can be, and then how do you get there once you've kind of got that picture in your mind?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think, truthfully, when growth really started happening in Fargo, and I have the kind of good fortune that I've got to work in Fargo and Moorhead, right? So I've kind of seen it on both sides. When growth really started taking off in Fargo about 15 years ago, there was a consistent and unified front from leadership, whether it was elected to department heads to community organizations, all striving for the same thing. I would say through just a lot of conversations and understanding the history, when that started happening, I think Moorhead had the opportunity to stand up and go along with it, but they almost kind of isolated themselves out, which, I can't speak for that time. That's what happened. But now we all are unified. We have Moorhead Business Association. We're having, good conversations with the Chamber of Commerce and the Greater Fargo Moorhead Economic Development Corporation. We all want to see this community uplifted and rising to the occasion. Now, I will say, truthfully, there is very different programs and policies between our two states, right? North Dakota versus Minnesota. There's certain assets that Minnesota has that North Dakota does not, vice versa, right? We have to play to those strengths to leverage our own assets. So for us, we're sitting here with the state of Minnesota with some large opportunities from an entrepreneurial development standpoint. We have grants opportunities that are available. There are groups that have addresses in Fargo, Emerging Prairie being one of them, the Greater Fargo Moorhead EDC that helps with entrepreneurial development. We are being told by the state of Minnesota that they can't be an honored partner. So that's difficult, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the structure's here. It's across the river. If we start leveraging those, we have individuals that would stay in this community, start their businesses, be on the forefront of a lot of different development for our community. And to turn a blind eye to it is just not a good way of doing it. But I think historically there's always been a complaint, from Moorhead to the state about the border city stuff. To me, it's not about complaint. It's how do you leverage it? Yeah, right. How do you take advantage of a metro that's 250,000 people, not a community that's isolated at 40,000 or so people? Our strengths are working together and getting the job done. So, we've had conversations too. I know Fargo is pushing really hard before I left too about like community center or a performing arts center. Arts is just one thing that I can tell you right now, the state of North Dakota doesn't have money for the arts. It just isn't there. There is money, though, that is in the state of Minnesota for it. So is a performing arts center something that this community needs? And if so, who has the best ability to get that done? It doesn't matter if it's on one side of the river or not. I think our communities are close enough and tight enough where people are going to jump the border to go experience different things. It's not a cultural divide where it's just, I'm not crossing the river for anything. It's just not there.
Yep. Give me your vision. What does Moorhead have? What does it look like in 20 years that it doesn't have or look like right now?
Well, I think certainly building on the strengths of our public institutions. So we have wonderful education systems with MSUM, Concordia, M-State, and our public school. I applaud our public school for working together with M-State to acquire the Sam's Club facility to do the Career Academy. I think that is a fantastic thing for streamlining a workforce need for our entire region. I also think that we have the ability in Moorhead to really see some change, I think, in the service industry. Consistently over the last number of years, we've seen more affordable housing there as well. That doesn't mean that we have to be, an affordable kind of sister to Fargo, but I think we are seeing through our high education system, through our kind of ag tech as well, that we can build on those strengths and see a better economy come out of it as well. One thing that I should mention and one opportunity that's really glaring at us right now is the City Hall space, the stuff that happens to be in and around the Moorhead Center Mall. The Roars development team has entered a pre-development contract with the city to represent the city-owned assets of the mall, and they're having some conversations then with the private ownership of what that space can become. You just don't have in urban environments that large of a landmass to work with. And that really has the potential to be a driving asset for our community, not only from a downtown perspective, but from a Fargo-Moorhead community perspective of what really should go there. So those conversations are ongoing. I think we're in the midst of a downtown master plan that's going to help guide that vision. I've always said it all along, I can have the greatest vision of what this place can become, what businesses should be there, whatever it may be. But if I don't have the support and the really engagement from the public, the residents, the businesses, it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. We need that consistent effort. I will say too, what I'm really proud of as well is through our downtown master planning process, we've hit record numbers of engagement. We've had 750 people take our survey, participate in our workshops, our public engagement settings. And that was just through our first phase of it as well. So we have the public truly behind our mission and our core and really trying to kind of guide that vision for what's to become.
Last question, then we'll let you go. Any good leader wants to grow his or her organization. Some organizations, maybe like a UND hockey team, you don't really grow the number of people in it. You just grow the footprint. How is it for Downtown Moorhead Inc.? Do you want to have a staff of 20 people someday? Do you just want to have more influence? What does the future look like, and how do you grow your organization so your footprint, your significance is greater as well?
Well, I think it's just being honest to yourself. I think it's easy just to add staff, but I think, especially in a time where there's a lot of redundancies with different organizations, I think it's being true to ourselves. What's our mission? How are other organizations or groups helping that mission? For us, we've had a great opportunity again to contract with the city. Certainly that adds a lot more work on my plate, but I think for the benefit of trying to grow this community and grow Downtown Moorhead Inc., I think that was an asset that we needed to tap into. But I would also say that, the Moorhead Business Association, the Chamber, the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC, all organizations that exist that are doing similar work, it's how do you start leveraging everybody together? How do you start finding commonalities and working closely together to get it done? One classic example of this is I really think our partnership between the Moorhead Business Association is super strong. Sherry Larson, who's their executive director, has done a fantastic job over the last year that she's been on staff. She's her office is right next door to mine. She's out talking to businesses. Obviously, they're building a base of membership for MBA, but if issues come up, she has a stack of my cards. My card's there. She says, reach out to Derrick, follows up an email. We just start going with it. Because not one person can get to every business or find out every challenge, but the more that we're communicating internally, and the more we're honest with that process, the quicker we can get things done and start going to work for our businesses, which really matters.
Derrick, appreciate you coming over. Great conversation today. All the best. A good Moorhead helps everybody in this metro area, so we all kind of need each other. So thanks for the good work you're doing over there.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Derrick LaPointe, he's the president and CEO of Downtown Moorhead Inc. in the Vaaler Insurance CEO Spotlight. Their employee benefits specialists at Vaaler work closely with your team members to ensure that the employees see the full value of the benefits that you are providing. It doesn't cost a penny to ask some questions. To set up a visit, go online to Vaaler.com. That's VAALER.com. 8:24, we've got a student athlete of the day to tell you about, and then a few words, and then we'll come back with a couple of closing thoughts to recap what just happened in D.C. That's right on the way.